Twins, Chord, Tempest Wind. These three are the best supports in P5X, but which one comes out on top? Is Tempest Wind's 5-star weapon worth getting? And is her A1 even necessary? In this video, I'll be giving my final review of Tempest Wind as well as answering the questions that I just listed. So let's start off with her kit first. At A0, Tempest Wind will have 200 SP and increase SP recovery by 60%. Then when she restores SP with a skill, that SP recovery is affected by the SP recovery. And when she uses skill 3, she uses all SP and activates the effects based on the number of SP used. The skill 1 deals damage to one foe and inflict wind sweep and falling petals for 2 turns. Falling petals is when the opponents take wind damage, you increase attack for that wind damage. It is based on Tempest Wind's crit rate above 100% up to 388% crit multiplier. So it's about 50+% attack buff to the wind skill. And then you also restore 16 SP. Skill 2 is a party attack buff for 2 turns. It also scales on Tempest Wind's crit multiplier up to 388%. It's about 40% attack buff. You also restore party's SP by 4%. And then for one time while the effect is active, when an ally deals damage with a skill resonance highlight, you restore Tempest Wind's SP by 12. And the SP recovery here, the 12, and just now the skill 1 with 16 is affected by SP recovery. So when you use the skill 2, you'll recover way more than 16 or 12 SP. For skill 3, you will spend all your SP and increase one ally's crit rate by 16% for 2 turns. Then you apply the following effects based on the number of SP you spent. So 50 SP or higher, you increase attack by 2.4 for every 1% of Tempest Rico's crit multiplier above 100%. More than 100 SP, it is 12% crit damage based on Tempest Rico's crit multiplier. 150 or higher is even more crit damage, and this one is 6% of Tempest Rico's crit multiplier above 100% also. They also have a cap at 388%. So basically the skill 3 buffs attack and a good amount of crit damage, and you ideally want to use all 200 SP. But highlight buffs and allies attack based on crit multiplier that's over 100% and also crit damage by 24.4% for 2 turns. You also restore 20 SP to all allies except for Tempest Rico. The first passive, after using a skill 3, you grant Unravel to the target for 2 turns. Unravel is basically when a skill damage is dealt, the DPS will gain a Blossom stack. The Blossom stack increases attack for 3 turns, stacks up to 10 times. Then when you have more than 5 Blossom stacks, you gain even more attack and also crit damage. Then if you have 10 Blossom stacks, you gain even more crit damage. And this passive has no cap, so you can get as much crit damage as possible and you can buff more stuff. Similar to skill 3, this passive buffs mostly attack and crit damage. But second passive is that she will increase her own crit damage and HP based on her SP recovery. So at 450% SP recovery, increase crit damage by 84% and HP by 1800. Moving on to her weapon. A 4-star weapon increases her own attack by 24%, and then when she restores SP with a skill, increase own crit damage by 16.5% up to 2 times. So a 33% crit damage to herself. A 5-star weapon is better, obviously, increases crit damage by 36.3%. Then after using a skill on an ally, increase all allies crit damage by 13.2% except for herself for 2 turns. Then when the main target deals damage with a skill, increase the damage by 3.3% for every 50 SP spent for that skill. So it's basically 3.3 times 4 because you use 200 SP. So it's the same as this one, 13.2%. So it's 13.2% crit damage and damage buff. On to her awareness. A1. Ava will make it so that the skill 1 will change from wind damage only to any attribute damage, so pretty much everything. And then you also increase target's crit damage taken by 30%. For skill 2, you will buff sweeper's attack by 25% more. A2 will increase Tempest Rico's max SP by 50, which directly buffs her skill 3 because her skill 3 uses all the SP. Then after activating skill 3, you will immediately recover 50 SP. Then you enhance the first passive, you double the crit damage that she buffs to the DPS. A4, a highlight now applies to all allies except for Tempest Rico. They increase the main target's crit damage and then restore 32 SP to all allies except for Tempest Wind. For A6, a skill 3 now buffs everybody except for herself. Then when the main target uses a skill, immediately activate skill 1 one time on the target foe. This effect can only be activated one time for each skill 3. Then you extend the duration of skill 3 by 1. Then when Tempest Wind is on the field, every crit rate that exceeds 100% will be converted to 2% crit damage. For cards, obviously the best one is Creation Worry. This is a very good card set. It increases her SP recovery by 80. It's basically also a prosperity set. So you get highlight gauge 25% at the start of battle, which allows you to do a typical 4 highlight rotation in 6 turns. Then the full card set increases crit damage when you have 200% SP recovery. If for some reason you want to run a different set, there is actually another set that you can potentially use, and that is Departure and Control set for defense debuff. But just note that if you use this set, you need higher substats for your cards, because Departure Control doesn't give you any SP recovery, unlike the Creation and Worry set. As for rotations, A0 is going to be 3-1, 3-1, 3-1 for a win single target DPS. Everything else is 3-2, 3-2, 3-2. For A1, it's going to be 3-1, 3-1, 3-1 for any single target boss or single target DPS. And then 3-2, 3-2, 3-2 for AoE bosses or AoE DPSs. So here are the stat requirements. I already went through this in one of the previous videos, but I'll just show you here again. You need around 31% for speed recovery, 35% for multiplier for the substats, or from like Mindscapes also. So this bottom row is basically remaining stats you need. If you're on Mindscape, it's going to be even more. Another thing is that I included a 4-star weapon variant here. The 4-star weapon is not bad actually, because it gives you 33% crit damage. 5-star is only 3.3% more, but the only problem is that the 4-star weapon takes like 2 turns to fully activate. So you're gonna have some downtime on the first 2 turns. For 5-star weapon, you get this 36.3% the moment you start the battle. So that's only like a big difference in terms of the stat requirements. Now for her team, she is a general buffer. She works with any DPS that wants attack and crit damage, so pretty much everything, maybe except for Fox and Mesa, because Fox doesn't want attack and Mesa doesn't want crit damage. So a Joker team, Queen team, pretty much all of them works. Then the best teammate for Tempest Wind is going to be Frostgelmont. These two synergize very well. Both of them are Wind, and then both of them have the exact same rotation of 3-1, 3-1, 3-1, which means that the Wind skill 1 will align with the Frostgelmont Spring's Edge, the field effect thing. Basically, it means that Tempest Wind can give stacks to Frostgelmont because they have the same rotation. So very good to synergize. And then obviously the skill 1 works on Frostgelmont at A0 Tempest Wind. Then other teammate, we can be anything. We can run double support with Strategies Twins. These two are quite good together also. Or Sustain with Marion, Moko. It's very versatile. Anything works. Navigator also pretty much anything works. For Dagger, the 2 common ones are going to be Stereo Compass if you need extra defense debuff, or I guess Arc Knife, but not really recommended here because it's only one element. If it's only one element, you might as well run Stereo Compass because it debuffs more than Arc Knife, and you don't need to force yourself to use a damaging move from Wonder. Or the other dagger that's good is Ex Machina if you don't need any more defense debuff. For Persona, the best one is typically Vishnu. Vishnu is good with Tempest Wind and a Frostgelmont team because of the signature skill. The signature skill can debuff and then can increase wind damage taken also, so it's very good. Other than Vishnu, Yanosi also works if you need defense debuff because of Mark. And then Dionysus, obviously the best persona in the game, can be used in any team. Or if you want, you can run like Dominion, or like Jigokuten also works because Jigokuten can buff attack, which pretty much most DPS wants. So very flexible team. Now we can move on to the weapon. So here's the data and the comparison between 5-star and 4-star weapon. Just keep in mind that the 4-star weapon has no tubes, because a max tube 4-star weapon can buff Tempest Wind's crit damage a bit higher, so it'll be easier to reach the cap. But data shows some increase, around 5 to 10% increase, and again, one of the reasons is because 4-star weapon, at least no dupe, doesn't hit the stat requirement. And of course, the 5-star weapon also buffs party's crit damage. But that being said, I still would recommend getting the 5-star weapon because Tempest Wind is going to be a character that we will use super often. You will see it pretty much for every week, every guild boss, every SOS, extra lab, everything. You will see Tempest Wind. So having a 5-star weapon on a character that you use every time, I think is pretty worth it. But of course, it's for you to decide. So there has been a lot of debate on whether Air 1 is actually required for Tempest Wind. So I've run some tests on both single target AoE bosses, on a Wind team also, and here's the result. So let's look at the AoE first, which is the red one. You can see that it's a super small increase. 1.7 here and then 3.5 here. Very small increase. The A1 buffs 25% attack, which sounds good, but honestly speaking, it's not that crazy. The big reason is because the attack stat is the most easily oversaturated offensive stat in the game. There is a lot of sources of attack. The DPS themselves can buff their own attack a lot of times. The 5-star weapon, for example, can buff their own attack. Most supports, Tempest Wind herself, buffs quite a bit of attack. And if you don't know what oversaturation means, it means that the more attack you buff while neglecting the other stats, the other offensive stats, the less increase you'll get at higher numbers. So basically what I mean is, if you buff a lot of attack, but you don't buff crit damage, you don't buff damage multiplier, the increase is going to be low, as opposed to buffing a damage or crit multiplier. So if the attack is already really high, what you're going to do is you buff damage multiplier and crit multiplier, because those two will give you more damage overall, or more accurately, higher final damage. So it makes sense for it to be super low here, because the attack stat very easily oversaturated stat. So damage multiplier and crit multiplier are usually the better offensive stats. And speaking of better offensive stats, it pretty much shows here with a Tempest Wind and Frostgale Mon team. You can see that 5.5%, 6.5% increase, both are Wind team, so with Frostgale Mon. And like I said, crit damage buff is typically better. So the A1 basically gives more crit damage to the DPS, 30% crit damage, which is why it actually buffs more than the sweeper. And finally, the blue one is a Queen team, so a non-Wind team. Skill 1 now becomes any element, right? Not just Wind. So it's gonna buff like 50+% attack. That's quite high compared to a 30% or 25% from the A1. And then you also get the 30% crit damage, so you get two things. That's why it has the highest. Now, to give you my opinion whether A1 is worth or not, honestly speaking, I don't think it's super worth it. Like you already see here, the only big difference is gonna be non-Wind single target bosses. It's a very specific subset of DPS. Sweeper is barely an increase, very small increase. Wind, respectable increase, but nothing crazy. But the non-Wind team, there is a higher increase, but it's only for those DPSs, the non-Wind single target DPSs. And I don't think it's worth going A1 for. A reminder that pulling for A1 is like pulling another character. You might as well use those gems to pull another character. That's just my thought. Whether or not you want, of course, it's up to you. I'm just here again to give you some numbers to help you decide. Now on to the interesting part of the video. Tempest Wind versus Chord versus Twins. These three supports are, I'm pretty sure many agree that, are the best supports in the game. The top 3. But which one is the best? Which one is number 2? Which one is number 3? So here's the data. I've done quite a number of testings here. On first glance, we look at Twins. That's an overwhelming amount of victory. 6 out of 7 fights the Twins won. That's pretty impressive. Meanwhile, when you look at someone like Chord, only 1 win. Tempest Wind won like maybe half or two only. But let's break it down, okay? It's gonna be confusing. Let's go through the big numbers. We don't want to talk about everything. It's gonna take a long time. So 21% here. Percentage increase, Wind Tempest to Twins. So 219 to 265. That's a big increase. And it just shows you how strong the Twins is. Then when you look at Chord to Twins, 17.9%. That's quite a big increase also in favor of the Twins. Then you look at this, 13%. This one is Chord to Tempest Wind. So it's for the Frostgale Mon boss. 13% increase. Then 14% increase from Twins to Tempest Wind. So the Twins only lost 1 here, and it's for a Wind team, a Frostgale Mon team, which is expected. Frostgale Mon team, Tempest Wind should be the best one because they're synergized as well. But when you look at here, we can say that they're about the same. And of course, I think the reason is because it's DOD and MLD. I think Twins are better for DOD for some reason. Not very sure why. You can see that they won everything in DOD, so it's a weakened state boss. Now, let me just quickly rank them from the worst to the best. When I say worst, I don't mean the worst support, I mean just the worst out of 3, because the worst out of 3 is still the top 3 support in the game. The worst one, I think, is going to be Chord. The thing about Chord is that she is tied heavily to highlight damage. If the highlight damage is weak, she will be weak. If highlight damage is strong, she will be strong. Now you may say that the reason why she is underperforming is because of the teams I use. Like I'm using a Frostgale Mon team, I'm using a Haru team, especially Haru, because Haru don't really do much damage to highlight. You are absolutely right, but that is also my point, because if you want to be the best support, you want to be best in slot for every team. If you are only best in slot for a few characters or low amount of characters, then you shouldn't be considered the best support in the game. And there's also another thing, and it's that my Chord is A1R0. Meanwhile, Twins is A0R1, Tempest Wind is A0R0. A1R0 Chord is performing worse overall compared to the other 2 supports. A1 Chord gives you 15% crit rate, which means that it's a lot easier to reach the cap with Chord, but that is still not enough. Then when she does outperform, like for example this one, it's only by 2.7%, a very low amount, which is a bit unfortunate. So what's the second best support? It's gonna be, I think, Tempest Wind. Tempest Wind is a very good support, better than Chord in my opinion. The reason she's not number 1 is because she only buffs mostly attack and crit damage, and also crit rate, a bit of crit rate with skill 3, but it's mostly attack and crit damage, which are good stats, but it's just those two. Meanwhile, the best support in the game in my opinion, the twins, they are really good. The twins buff a lot of things on top of attack and crit damage. They also buff pierce rate, they also buff skill amplification, they also have 2 highlights to use in one rotation, and they can be anything you want. You can use them as DPS, you can use them as a state, and their buffs are mostly party-wide buffs. They highlight, the Fire Ice highlight buffs everybody. 5-star weapon buffs everybody. So it pretty much increases everybody's damage. Even though the non-DPS will do less damage, but an increase is an increase. So in my opinion, the twins is the best support in the game right now. Now moving on to the section where I talk about what I like and dislike about my experience using and testing Tempest Wind. Now let's start off with the negative first. And honestly, I barely have any bad thing to say about Tempest Wind. She's just really good. But there is just one thing I want to talk about, and it's something rather minor, and it's that her weapon doesn't target herself. So what do I mean by that? Looking back at the 5-star weapon again, you increase all allies crit damage besides Tempest Recoil. You may say that, you know, who cares? Because Tempest Wind is not really going to do damage. I'm not talking about damage, I'm talking about her passive. This is Vernal Splendor passive. If the 5-star weapon can buff her own crit damage, not only does it make it easier to reach the requirement, the crit multiplier requirement, it also buffs this passive further. It's a bit unfortunate that she cannot get the buff herself. Or maybe they knew that it's going to be broken so they kept it that way. But yeah, that's really the only bad thing I'm going to say about her. Everything else is going to be good. And honestly speaking, I think I'm just nitpicking here because I want to include at least one bad thing for this video. Now on to the good stuff. The first thing, like I already briefly mentioned, this passive has no limit. No cap. So you can raise the crit damage as high as possible. You can run them with twins, because twins can buff crit damage, which can directly buff Tempest Wind also. The next thing is that I like a skill 1, because a skill 1 can inflict wind sweep, and you can align this wind sweep with a Vishnu signature skill, because Vishnu signature skill can increase wind damage taken when the target is wind swept, so it can buff your wind DPS, specifically your Frost Scale Mount, so they synergize quite well together. The last thing I want to talk about is the fact that she can heal SP. Her highlight can heal SP, her skill 2 can heal SP. Why this matters is 2 things. Number 1, it makes fights easier to sustain. Eventually we're gonna get some more event fights where you're gonna stall a bit, and having Tempest Wind will make stalling easier because she can heal SP. One more reason is specifically to Frost Scale Mount. If you didn't know, if you have 0 SP recovery for Frost Scale Mount, she will have 1 SP short to do a 3-1-3-1 rotation. But that changes if you pair Frost Scale Mount with Tempest Wind, because Tempest Wind can give SP. Then that means the Frost Scale Mount will always have enough SP to complete the fight. Now for the final section of the video, should you pull Tempest Wind? And is Tempest Wind actually worth the hype and praise that people give her? So you either only have twins, or you have Chord, so only one of them, then it's a must pull. 100% 10 out of 10 must pull. You ideally want to have at least 2 good supports on your account. If not, it's going to cause you some trouble. So absolutely pull for her. If you only have twins, or if you skill on twins or skill on Chord, you should get Tempest Wind, absolutely. Now, if you have both twins and Chord already, should you still pull for her? I think it's still yes. I would still highly recommend her. She brings a lot of value to your account. Like I already said, I believe she's the second best support in the game, and having another amazing support for your account is always a good thing and a good investment. So the final general rating for should you pull Tempest Wind, 9 out of 10.